Hey everyone, welcome back. I know lately on the channel most of the reviews have been on Jurassic World toys and PNSO, just because they've been releasing so much stuff so often. It's been really tough to keep up. I still have a bunch of stuff from Jurassic World that I haven't gotten to yet, but I figured it would be a good time to go back and look at some other figures from other companies. So today's review is going to be on the 2018 CollectA Brontosaurus. Sauropod dinosaurs are my favorite genus of dinosaurs, and Apatosaurus slash Brontosaurus is my favorite dinosaur. I've always adored this animal ever since I was a little kid. So before we jump into a review, most of you familiar with dinosaurs knows that Apatosaurus is the real name for Brontosaurus. There's a very long and confusing history that goes with that, but here's just a quick rundown. In the late 1800s, O.C. Marsh at Yale University discovered Apatosaurus. Then a couple of years later, he found another fossil specimen that was very similar to Apatosaurus, but he deemed it should be a different species, so he coined the name Brontosaurus, which means thunder lizard. But in 1903, Elmer Riggs at the Field Museum, I believe, said there weren't enough differences between the Brontosaurus remains and the Apatosaurus remains, that they should be the same species. And since Apatosaurus was the first named species, that name took precedence over Brontosaurus. But in 1905, Henry Fairfield Osborn of the Natural History Museum in New York was just about to unveil the first mounted sauropod skeleton, and he decided to go with the name Brontosaurus. And with the popularity of that museum and that mount, the name Brontosaurus got cemented in the general public's mind. But ever since then, the name Brontosaurus has been considered an invalid name for Apatosaurus, which brings us to 2015, where a very long and detailed study was conducted on, I think, around 80 Apatosaurus specimens, and those paleontologists conducting that study have deemed that there are enough differences between certain fossils of Apatosaurus that were once called Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus fossils that Brontosaurus is now a valid species. So that is the long and short of it. Some paleontologists don't accept that they are separate species, that more study needs to be conducted. And some people have accepted that there are enough differences between Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus that Brontosaurus is now considered a real dinosaur. And actually, even the Peabody Museum at Yale University, they have a nice mounted skeleton of Apatosaurus, which was originally called Brontosaurus, because that's where O.C. Marsh worked. They have actually renamed that skeleton now Brontosaurus. So there's plenty of stuff online talking about the differences between Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus. I could make a whole 2-hour long video talking about all the differences, but we're here to talk about this really cool 2018 CollectA Brontosaurus, so let's jump into the review. CollectA has always kind of been ahead of the game. When there's any new species or information about a dinosaur, they are pretty quick to get a new figure onto the market. So that Brontosaurus study came out in 2015, and in 2018 they gave us this really nice looking Brontosaurus figure. And I actually just got this figure in probably a couple months ago. For some reason, this just fell off my radar. There was just so much stuff that came out in 2018. I actually forgot to order this guy, so I got him in recently from Everything Dinosaur. As you can see, it's from their regular size dinosaur line. They have a deluxe line where the figures are bigger, but for this being in their small line, this is still a good size figure. So let's start off with a couple of quick measurements. Let me just pull the camera back so we can get the whole figure into shot. And this figure is just about 12 inches long from the tip of the tail, which is curved in. It would be even longer if this tail was stretched out. And just about 3.5 inches tall to the top of the head. So with those measurements, Brontosaurus estimated size length is 72 feet. This would put this figure somewhere in the 172 scale range, so not a big figure. I kind of hope someday that CollectA will make a larger version of this in the deluxe line. They have done stuff like that before in the past, like with their Dinosaurus and their T-Rex. They had a smaller and a deluxe version, so hopefully they'll come out with a really big deluxe version, because I love big sauropod toys. So the pose of the figure is just very standard and simple. It's just a nice walking pose with the tail held high, with that whip-like end curled a little bit, with the neck held just a little higher than being parallel with the body. So moving on to the coloration, this figure is primarily a brown color with just a little bit of black banding starting at the top of the head, going down all the way to the body, some shading around the legs and forearms, and more of that banding starting at the base of the tail, going all the way down to the tip, and underneath the stomach, neck, and tail have a nice cream color to them. And moving up to the head, let's get some focus on that. There is some red coloration around the eye and a little bit of red at the base of the neck, which looks really cool. I think it just breaks up the overall brown color up on this figure. And as you can see, the eye is just painted black. The teeth, the peg-like teeth, you can see are painted white. And the inside of the mouth is a dark maroon color for the tongue. And you have a nice row of spikes that starts right at the top, right behind the skull, that continues all the way down the body. They're done in a gray color, and when you get to the tail, it actually breaks down into this staggered 3 rows, which looks really, really cool. I like the way that looks when you're viewing this figure from the top, and that double row then continues down to almost the end of the tail, where it merges into a single row. One thing that CollectA did with this model that I absolutely love, when you look at most sauropod figures from other companies, they very rarely give them scales. It's mostly just a wrinkly looking skin similar to an elephant. And CollectA has decided to give this figure scales from head to toe, and it looks great. This has a wonderful texture to it, running your fingers over it. This model just feels really, really nice in hand. You got a lot of fine scales all over the body, all the way up to the head, and then you have some larger osteoderms starting at the top of the head, going down to the body, along the back, and some above the hip bone and shoulder bone. And it's just such a great looking effect. I love, so glad that this figure has scales on it. It's something you just don't see a lot on sauropod models. And moving down to the feet are correct, with just that inner thumb claw exposed. The rest of the toes are covered by skin, and the feet are the correct shape. They have that almost half moon like look to them. Same thing with the back feet. The 3 claws are exposed while the others are covered by skin. And I just love the overall proportions of this figure. It just looks great. The head is the right size and shape. We all know back in the day that Paleosaurus and Brontosaurus was mostly depicted with a boxier skull like Coloration. All in all, a very well done figure. And I have to say, the dirty CollectA cloaca is really not that bad on this figure. Trust me, to some other figures, it looks like an absolute explosion happened down there. So, with all these details out of the way, let's take out some other figures and see how this Brontosaurus compares to them. Alright, first up for comparison is the 2011 Safari LTD Apatosaurus, which is a fantastic model for being one of their older ones. You can see how those stack up together size-wise. And here it is with the Papo Juvenile Apatosaurus. And you know, that study I was talking about, the 2015 study, you know, one of the biggest differences they said that distinguished Brontosaurus from Apatosaurus is the size of the neck vertebrae. Apatosaurus has had a larger, more robust neck, and Brontosaurus has a more slender neck. But it just depends, you know, what side of the study you fall on, if you really think these two animals are two different species. And here it is with the new Safari LTD Camarasaurus. which is a fantastic figure. Absolutely love that Camarasaurus. And here it is with some of its Morrison formation companions. Here it is with the new Safari LTD Allosaurus. There it goes. I thought it was going to fall over. And you can see, obviously, this Brontosaurus is not to scale with pretty much any dinosaur in any line, but you can consider this to be a young animal that this Allosaurus is trying to prey on. And here it is with another 2019 Safari figure. Here it is with their Stegosaurus, which is another fine figure by them. And here it is with a couple of the newer CollectA. Here it is with their 2019 Pelta. And last but not least, here it is with their new Carnotaurus, which is an absolutely amazing figure by CollectA. So final thoughts. I absolutely love this figure. I think this is a fantastic sauropod figure. Even though it is not as large as I would like it to be, it's still a great figure. Nonetheless, I love how CollectA decided to give this figure scales, and you just don't see that on sauropod figures, so I really think this makes this stand out from the pack, so to speak. And plus, it's really cool that we actually have a figure now, after a very in-depth scientific study, that we have a Brontosaurus figure, which is really cool. And speaking of Brontosaurus, next month I'm going to be making a trip to the Yale Peabody Museum. I just want to see the dinosaur hall one more time. It is planned for a major renovation sometime in 2020, so I just want to go visit the hall one more time. A lot of their skeletal mounts there have been standing almost in the same position for over 100 years, and they're going to redo everything and get everything up to date and scientific looking. And I'm thinking about doing a nice video walkthrough of the dinosaur hall, showcasing all the skeletons there. A lot of that stuff is holotype material and just has a lot of great history, so be looking for that video probably sometime in the middle of July. I ended up getting this figure off of everythingdinosaur.com. CollectA is kind of hard to find in the US. Can't think of any stores that actually physically stock them, so the only way you can get them is either off Amazon, Everything Dinosaur, or off of eBay. Everything Dinosaur has the best prices on CollectA. This figure costs just about $10 and is absolutely worth that price tag, so I'll leave a link to Everything Dinosaur in the description, so if you want to get this model, you have that information there for you. And that will do it for the review, guys. And as always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. The channel is growing great, and I appreciate everyone that is subscribing, and each subscription helps the channel grow. And I'll see you for the next one.